For guys like us, non-stopping action. 5-second fast break, 2 hours playing time, kaya dapat non-stop protection. Dapat Rexona.
Finally, the stick just for men. New Rexona Extra Dry Sports Stick. Rexona stops germs, keeps you dry, and keeps on working. Only Rexona has Deoxyral Max. That's 24-hour protection, 100% confidence.
May 5-minute overtime pa.
New Rexona Extra Dry Sports Stick.
It won't let you down. From Unilever.
Loaded sa lasa at sa lakas, may tamang arangkada. Pare, sarap ng tama.
Magmenor ka naman.
Marami sa atin ang may paniniwala na lahat ng nangyayari sa loob ng bilangguan ay masama. Pero marahil dyan tayo nagkakamali dahil mayroong mga nagbabagong buhay, mayroong mga umiibig, mayroong nakakita ng panibagong daan patungo sa Diyos. Ito ang kwento sa loob ng bilangguan. Balitang K, Lunes.
This portion is brought to you by Rexona Sport, 100% confidence. This portion was brought to you by Rexona Sport, 24-hour protection.
This program is brought to you by Samsung.
We know advanced technology doesn't have to be complicated, that every product must be meaningful. And the end result will make you smile. Open up to Samsung Digital. Samsung Digital. Everyone's invited.
Every girl needs a superhero. Cool, fresh, Phoenix, new from Axe. Let it fire up her imagination.
Tic-tac, tic-tac, tic-tac. Tic-tac. Tic-tac, tic-tac, tic-tac. New Phoenix from Axe. Because first impressions last. From Unilever.
Loaded sa lasa at sa lakas, may tamang arangkada. Pare, sarap ng tama.
Magmenor ka naman.
This program was brought to you by Ginebra by San Miguel, Red Horse Beer, and Rexona Antiperspirant and Deodorants. Ligtas ka ba kung saan ka nakatira?
Nagkalat ang mga baril nagsitaasan ang mga bakod ng bahay.
Nagkukulong ka na ba sa sarili mong tahanan?
Panatag ba ang loob mo o takot ka ba?
Sigurado ka bang ligtas ka? Lalo na ngayong mukha ng garrison ang Manila.
The Correspondents, Lunes pagkatapos ng Pulso Aksyon Balita.
And I'm Erwin Tufo.
Tonight on the Weekend News, the Catholic Church refuses to be caught in the crossfire of the raging wetting war.
Labor groups are still restless over the 26 pesos and 50 centavos metro wage hike.
Government shifts the campaign to neutralize Abu Sayyaf bandits.
And meet a cab driver who does not believe in the rule of finders keeper.
Ilocos Sur Governor Luis Singson has sought the protection of the Catholic Church in a bold move to reveal the identities of high-ranking public officials benefiting from wetting operations. But this early, the Catholic Church is not keen on shielding him from whatever harm, nor is it joining him in his fight. Former President Corazon Aquino shares the same view. Full details from Cristina Diocadi.
The church will pray for Ilocos Sur Governor Chavit Singson, nothing more. Singson had sought the help of influential Manila Archbishop Jaime Cardinal Sin, fearing retribution for accusing the president of amassing millions from wetting. Singson also sought refuge at the Archbishop's residence, Villa San Miguel, for a month. But it seems Singson will have to look for another place to stay.
We have only 4 rooms, all of them occupied. He cannot stay in my room.
Singson cannot expect the church to take him in, nor take up the cudgels for him.
The help of any priest is first and foremost spiritual and pastoral.
For her part, former President Corazon Aquino prefers to wait until the evidence is presented before passing judgment. The church remains in staunch opposition to wetting and any other form of gambling. Militant labor has also joined the clamor.
Nawawala na siya ng trabaho, maliit na yung kalidad ng kanyang sahod, ay hinihikayat pa niya yung mamamayan na daanin na lamang sa pamamagitan ng sugal, sa pamamagitan ng bingo at huweteng, yung swerte.
Cristina Diocades, ABS-CBN News.
Senate President Franklin Drilon would not lift a finger in the reported plan of some of his party mates in the Senate to move for Senator Teofisto Gingona's suspension. Gingona earned the ire of his colleagues after he bared during a privileged speech that President Estrada received 290 million pesos from wetting lords. Drilon says he won't initiate any move and will wait for the filing of the resolution to discipline Gingona should the latter fail to back his expose with evidence.
I think he should be responsible enough to know the severity of the charges that he has made on no less than the president.
The government turned to the highly controversial Bingo 2 balls to eradicate wetting. But Palawan Puerto Princesa Mayor Edward Hagedorn, a self-confessed former wetting lord, says introducing Bingo 2 balls alone will not work. Mike Cohen reports on Hagedorn's insights on how to effectively stop wetting.
Former small-town lottery operators like Mayor Edward Hagedorn of Puerto Princesa believes the small-town lottery experiment of the early 90s failed because it only legitimized wetting and had few safeguards to monitor revenue.
Sa ibang areas na talagang mas gusto nilang wetting, ginagawa nilang front ng FCL. Nung mamatay sa ibang lugar, pati yung plato, nasa na. That was the time, papilitan ako pumasok sa wetting.
Hagedorn is open about his past as a former gambling lord. Wetting in Palawan only stopped, he says, when he stopped.
Kaya tinigil ko ako nagpapawetting So kung ang operator sa titigil, talaga tigil yan. Pero maski huliin mo nang huliin yung kubrador, kung talagang may go signal ng local official, hindi matitigil yan.
But illegal numbers games like wetting do generate millions of jobs nationwide.
Talagang pera yung wetting. Pero kailangan lang talaga ang monitoring is very strong.
Mayor Hagedorn has shown that wetting can be stopped when local officials show political will. However, in areas where wetting is often part of the local culture, Hagedorn feels only a legalized, properly monitored numbers game may perhaps be the only way to control wetting.
Kita ng government ngayon with this Bingo Ball 2, para hindi rin ma-display yung mga tao. At the same time, hindi na rin lang matigil, at least magkaroon na ng share ang government.
Mike Cohen, ABS-CBN News.
Labor groups considered the 26 pesos and 50 centavos wage hike for Metro Manila workers a pittance. This despite the employer's position that it was actually too much. The Labor Department also feels Filipino workers are luckier than those in other Asian countries. Robert Tan has more.
Despite the added 26 pesos and 50 centavos increase in the daily minimum wage of workers in Metro Manila, the labor sector remains restless. The Kilosang Mayo Uno vows to mount a nationwide protest rally on October 13 to push for a 125 peso across-the-board wage hike, as well as the abolition of the regional wage boards.
Pambobola lamang at moro-moro yung ginawang ng regional wage board. Dahil alam naman natin na sino ba yung nakaupo dyan sa regional wage board. Ang nakaupo sa regional wage board ay yung mga multinationals or representative from the employer and even from the government.
The BMP rejects the wage board's decision because it is based on the employer's capacity to pay and not the worker's capacity to buy their daily necessities. But the Employers Confederation of the Philippines believes the increase was too much.
Masyadong mataas ang pagka-adjust dito. Dahil hindi lang naman 2650 yan, titingnan nyo yan. Dahil kasama hutid sa mga benepisyo po nakatag in dun sa sweldo. So effectively, lampaso ng 40 ito.
The kaunlaran ng manggagawang Pilipino is willing to make sacrifices, but not to the extent of accepting measly salaries.
Ang isang competitive advantage natin ay nasa labor productivity. Kung gusto natin na mas maganda ang value added ng ating produce. At sa tingin ko, malaking asset dito ay ang productive labor force. At yan sa palagay ko ay dapat mako-compensate duly ng tamang pasahod. No? While at the same time ay hindi nga natin isa-sacrifice ang investment opportunity.
Labor Secretary Bienvenido Laguesma justifies the increase, saying the minimum wage in the Philippines is higher than other Asian countries.
Kumpara mo yan sa Thailand, 202 pesos. Sa Indonesia, 115. Sa Vietnam, 83 pesos. Sa China, 64 pesos.
Robert Tan, ABS-CBN News.
Next on the weekend news, at least 20 Abu Sayyaf men are cited in Tawi-Tawi. And unseated party list representatives suspect Malacanang had a hand in the Supreme Court's decision to nullify the proclamation. All these and more when the weekend news returns.
On the right track, Radyo Patrol number 27, tumatakbo sa Malacanang upang makarating sa isang mahalagang press conference ukol sa isang kontrobersyang pinakasamputan ng isang government official. Samantala, kumunod naman ng Radyo Patrol number 28, mga bilis namang responde sa isang sunog na nagaganap ngayon sa Valenzuela. Doon naman pahuhuli ang Radyo Patrol number 12, na lumalapsada patungo sa isang rally na nagaganap ngayon sa Quezon City. On the third turn, Radyo Patrol number 20, patungo sa Sankrari upang makapag-imbestiga ukol sa naganap na pambabato ng mga realista sa mga pulis sa Venezuela. Kasalukuyan naman nasa Darami TV ang Radyo Patrol number 24 para mag-update ng mainit-initang balita ukol sa nahuling malaking grupo ng mga magnanakaw ng cellphone at humahabol ang Radyo Patrol number 10 sa isang hostage
24 oras na kumakaripas, walang balitang nakakatakas sa ating mga DZMM Radyo Patrol reporters.
Officials of the AFP Southern Command confirm reports of Abu Sayyaf sightings in Tawi-Tawi. In a briefing this afternoon, Southcom Chief Lieutenant General Diomedio Villanueva said at least 20 Abu Sayyaf bandits landed in Tawi-Tawi a few days ago. Ronald Estella reports from Zamboanga City.
Southcom Chief Lieutenant General Diomedio Villanueva says government troops based in the island province engaged the fleeing Abu Sayyaf men in an encounter. But Villanueva discounted the possibility of a spillover in Tawi-Tawi now that the bandit group is on the run because of intensified military operations in Sulu and Basilan. Local officials of Tawi-Tawi have given the military their commitment not to allow the Muslim extremists to enter the province.
Nakakatulong rin yung pagtuturo ng mga tao Kunyari, iniwan nila yung mga baril nila at saka ammunition nila kasi hindi nila makarga. Yung mga tao doon sa ulo ay mismo nagtuturo kung saan nila naiwan.
The government has entered the second phase of military offensive against the bandit group. Defense Secretary Orlando Mercado says their second mission is to neutralize, capture, or finally make the bandits incapable of kidnap for ransom activities. This, he says, will be pursued until all the Abu Sayyaf men are held accountable for all their crimes. House Speaker Manuel Villar visited the wounded soldiers in Zamboanga. and expressed support for the military in its relentless efforts to crush the Abu Sayyaf. Ronald Estella, ABS-CBN News, Zamboanga.
Social services is the key to rehabilitate and alleviate poverty in Mindanao. This is what Congressman Rowan Libarez believes in the bill he dubbed 2020 Initiative. Libarez says this will strengthen the strategic framework in the national campaign to address human poverty at its roots. In this bill, he says 20% of public resources and 20% of official development funds should be diverted for social services. He says funding for this has declined since 1998 and is now only 13%. He adds that if the government cannot arrest the decline, the already bad situation in Mindanao may worsen.
If you go by the reports, a lot of people need more feeding, more nutrition programs, more health attention, more support to their educational needs. So the demand has actually more than doubled in light of the war situation in Mindanao.
A 9-year-old son of a prominent businessman in Talusan, Zamboanga del Sur was kidnapped by suspected MILF rebels. The father of the kidnapped victim, Ricardo Lim, confirmed the kidnapping of his son after receiving a letter from the kidnappers demanding 5 million pesos in ransom. The victim has been missing since September 14, but this was not immediately reported to authorities. The abductors were reportedly headed by Commander Tamburani Kadam, alias Commander Boy Negro, of the MILF operating in Payao, Zamboanga del Sur.
38 party list representatives coming from marginalized sectors waited for over 2 years to attend Congress sessions. But after the Supreme Court ruled that they are not qualified to be on the lower house, they blame no one except Malacanang. Anna Mary Fuderanan filed this report.
Unseated party list representatives suspect Malacanang had a hand in the nullification of their proclamation supposedly to eliminate potential supporters of impeachment proceedings against President Estrada.
Sa totoo lang, 2 linggo na nakaraan, may lumapit sa amin at tinanong kami kung kami ba kontra Malacanang o hindi. Eh sabi namin bakit? Dahil nag-head countdown sila tungkol sa impeachment. Ang kagulat dahil 2 taon kami naghintay sa decision. Pag malapit na matapos yung term at saka lang na pinalabas yung decision.
Blanca Flor cited an excerpt of the Supreme Court's decision indicating that the administration's motive was to consolidate its hold on the legislature. Blanca Flor insists the move was politically motivated.
Bakit pinag-usapan dito stability of Congress? This is lawmaking, this is not political.
Akbayan Party List Representative Loretta Ann Rosales welcomes the Supreme Court's decision. She, however, wants the High Tribunal to clarify when Akbayan can be allowed another representative in Congress.
If the Supreme Court decided on an additional seat for us, that would have been the trade union leader, Danny Adranian, who is now chair of the Alliance of Progressive Labor, which is a federation of different service trade unions, you know, hotel trade unions and industrial unions and so on. So he would have joined us and we would have been able to strengthen the labor sector.
She also believes Blanca Flor's statement is far-fetched.
So I don't agree with the idea that the decision was politically motivated and pressured by Malacanang because it seemed so far-fetched.
The unseated party list representatives are set to appeal the High Tribunal's ruling. Ana Mari Balane Fuderanan, ABS-CBN News.
Armida Sigyon Reyna gets another year as chairperson of the Movie and Television Review and Classification Board, along with Sigyon Reyna and Executive Director Jose Velasco. President Estrada also reappointed 26 other members of the board. Their terms will expire on September 30, 2001. Likewise, given a mandate to serve in the board for the first time are Ricardo Solomon, Mary Christine Mitra, Orlando Olgado, and Alfredo Yuson. Aside from reviewing and classifying films, TV, and cable programs, the MTRCB is also in charge of issuing licenses to movie theaters.
33 convicts were meted out death sentences in September to bring to 1,547 the total number of inmates now on death row. Of the 33, 15 were convicted for qualified rape, 8 for kidnapping, 6 for murder, and 4 for robbery with homicide. So far, 7 convicts were put to death by lethal injection. before Malacanang suspended the executions in deference to the Jubilee year celebration of the Catholic Church. Next in Money Wrap, the battered peso is saved by the Bangko Sentral and stronger Asian currencies, but the stock market remains groping in the dark. And Chinese-Filipino tycoon Lucio Tan increases his stake at Philippine National Bank to 71%. The weekend news returns after these.
Ito ang malaking sorpresa namin sa inyo sa Hoy Gising! Ngayong Pasko, isa sa mga naggagandahang bahay na ito sa St. Monique Village sa Binangonan Rizal ang maaaring mapa sa inyo. Dahil sa darating na Kapaskuhan, isang duplex na bahay na nagkakahalaga ng 1.3 million pesos ang aming ireregalo sa dalawang masuswerteng pamilya. O ano, gusto nyo nang malaman kung paano manalo? Nood na ng Hoy Gising! Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 4 ng hapon.
Heading tonight's Money Wrap, our battered currency is starting to bounce back thanks to the Bangko Sentral's move to raise the reserve requirements for banks. Stronger Asian currencies are also helping the local unit gain some lost ground. The peso ended the week at 46.395, up 2.5 centavos from Thursday's 46.42. Volume, however, fell to $122 million from Thursday's $151.9 million, as many banks sold dollars after overbuying their requirements for the year. The Bangko Sentral, meantime, left interest rates unchanged to avoid dampening economic growth. The central bank borrows overnight funds at 11% and lends at 13.25%. Over at the Philippine Stock Exchange, prospects are not as hopeful despite government's efforts to save the peso and appease the negative sentiment of the business community. Share prices barely moved, and as Nadia Trinidad tells us, market players have become apathetic towards positive developments in government that could otherwise be market-moving news.
Standard & Poor's may have affirmed its stable credit rating on the Philippines, but even that failed to boost sentiment on local shares. The BSP's standing order to raise banks' reserve requirement also stoked fears the flow of funds into equities would become more restricted. The result, a mixed bag at the Philippine Stock Exchange, where share prices barely moved. The physics was down less than a point at 1389, even though the broader market all shares climbed by 15. Analysts say shares that were hard hit in previous sessions experienced some boon from bargain hunters. They proved luckier than stocks which rallied at the start of the week. There were more gainers than losers, with only 501 million shares changing hands. The main index was pulled mostly by losing blue chips Ayala Corporation, PLDT, and SM Prime Holdings. Meralco A and B are still bleeding following a debt payment row with the National Power Corporation. But the biggest loser of them all was Alaska Milk, which dropped 22% to 1 peso 80 centavos. Manulife Financial was a big winner though, closing sharply higher by 85 pesos. Shares of Philippine National Bank are still climbing. On news, it will get a 10 billion peso cash infusion from majority shareholder Lucio Tan. Nadia Trinidad, ABS-CBN News.
After flip-flopping on his decision to buy government's 30% holdings in Philippine National Bank, Filipino-Chinese tycoon Lucio Tan has finally gobbled up all of government's PNB shares. The BSP confirmed Tan completed a 10.2 billion peso infusion in PNB following government's approval in principle of the bank's rehabilitation plan. Just yesterday, the beer and tobacco tycoon increased his stake in PNB to 71% by subscribing to the 10 billion peso 5-for-6 stock rights offering aimed at giving the troubled bank much-needed fresh capital. PNB has among the highest non-performing loan ratios in the country, including that of TAN's Philippine Airlines. The World Wide Web does not only make millionaires of those gambling online, it also allows busy investors to buy and sell their stock market shares electronically. And here at home, Diversified Financial Network is aiming to do just that. DFNN, which will soon list at the Philippine Stock Exchange on October 30, expects to be profitable as early as next year with the help of some offshore businesses. DFNN President Raymond Garcia says the company expects to make about $3.3 million from the shares that will go public. The funds will be used to fund the company's operations over the next 2 years. DFNN.com is the initially offer online trading services to brokerages and eventually expand into e-business solutions and platforms to other financial institutions, including banks and insurance firms. And that's Money Wrap. Up next in World Highlights, Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic concedes defeat in last month's presidential election. And the death toll in clashes between Palestinians and Israeli soldiers rises to 77. The weekend news will be back. Please stay with us.